Be the Talk, episode 213, featuring Erik Witsoe. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Erik Witsoe. Erik,
hello.
Are you ready to talk?
I'm ready to talk, Nathan.
Seattle native photographer who's exploring cinematic life through his lens in Warsaw, Poland, Erik Witsoe has made his home with his fiance for the last 7 years overseas. Perspective has helped Erik pave the way for self-understanding through everyday adventures, allowing him to unearth the often humorous aspects of his new journey abroad. Erik Witsoe, welcome to the talk.
It's great to be here, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
Your talk has called Discovering Myself Abroad Through a Mini Adventure Perspective. And I love this because I haven't spent a lot of time in Europe, but I can definitely relate to spending a lot more time in a grocery store than I originally thought. Maybe not as much as 2 or 3 hours. Please, Erik, take us behind the talk.
You know, life here is always interesting and intriguing. And my life really is made up of mini adventures throughout the day. So the moment that I leave the door in the morning for whatever I'm going to do, I don't really have an expectation of how it's going to roll out. Not so much of a plan, but these adventures take the place of just everything being different from what I know from back home. And like you said, going to the grocery store can be an adventure itself. And when I first got here, everything is so different from what I would know. First of all, the Polish language is very difficult. It's very different, and it's not intuitive. So I might look at something that looks like butter, but I'm not quite sure it is. So
I can't believe that wouldn't be butter. I've just got to say.
Exactly. If we grew up on that thing, I can't believe that that's not butter. And these differences always make me intrigued, and they always keep me very interested and grounded. So I discovered a new facet of my life through living here. And the last 7 years have just been this roller coaster of adventures every day,
Well, and if you can help me understand which focus is your main focus right now, because I mean you're running a coffee shop, you do comics, you do photography, you're an artist, you're learning the language. What's the main thing that you're doing in the context of living every day as an adventure, which is really the key piece that I think has been brilliant. What's your main purpose right now? What's your main focus?
My main focus is photography. So I am a freelance photographer. We closed our coffee shop a couple years ago, so I could refocus and repurpose myself into photography. And it's kind of been that way ever since. So that's where my head is at now.
So I can certainly vouch as well as anyone else who's seen your branded talk, because you show some of your photography in there. You caught Poland. I didn't know Poland was known for being a place for we call them leaf peepers, when the colors come out in the trees and the trees and the leaves change colors and all of that. You have some great work that you show in your talk of your photography. So when did you discover this? Was this the start of your adventure? Did that help you clue into the whole adventure thing when you saw this amazing vivid color?
Day one was the beginning of that. Coming from Seattle, and Seattle is very much like it's a very wet, rainy city. It can be. And there's not much deviation throughout the weather every year. It's like we have it's green, very, very green, but it's also very wet and very gray. So coming here to Poland, where there's 4 distinct seasons, all of a sudden everything changed for me. And it was immediately when we arrived here in September. We arrived at the end of summer, the beginning of fall, and within a week, everything had gone to brilliant reds and yellows and oranges, colors that I had never seen growing up in Pacific Northwest. And of course we have these kind of trees there, but not as predominant as here. And I think that the weather here is much more like Midwestern type of weather. So it gets cold winters, very hot summers, and then all of the seasons that you might find in between.
Oh,
but the adventures started day one. Really, this was the exploration of color. And part of the background of that color is that I love black and white, but I felt like immediately coming here, my photography was going to be based in color because I really wanted people to see how beautiful Poland is. And I don't think that there's this really big awareness of how gorgeous it is here and how vibrant it can be and how all those differences just make something really special and incredible. So that's kind of where that ended up.
Well, yeah, and I've been to Seattle. A bunch of Talk Universe is listening from Seattle as well as the West Coast, and it's not very deciduous. So it's evergreen trees, which, the region of the country that I live in, it's very deciduous. So when I go out to the Northwest, I think it's beautiful, all the green, but it's all perspective. It's all perspective. So what would you consider yourself a polyglot at this point, Erik? Do you know several different languages at this point? I really appreciated how you let us in. It's very transparent and vulnerable. You let us into your struggles learning the Polish language and actually cracking into the culture, because a lot of people, this was interesting to me. If you say hi to them, they felt, if I remembered correctly, they felt like they were supposed to have remembered who you were, and you were just saying hi for the first time. And so you discovered this cultural, I don't want to call it a disconnect, but a different way of thinking. So how have you bridged that in addition to your persistence?
I am not a polyglot. I'll say that. I wish that I were fluent in Polish, but I am not yet. I still have a lot to learn. But I understand the language quite a bit, just not fluent yet. But being able to observe it from the point of view that I have, and especially as a coffee shop owner, it was always very interesting. And it's very true. The culture's different from what we would know as Americans. I mean, it's nothing for us to say hello to a stranger. If somebody catches your eye, immediately you'll smile and you'll say hello or not. It's up to you. Here, that often leaves somebody very confused. They don't know if they've met you. They don't know where they met you. They're not sure if they should know you. And it's enough to stop somebody in their tracks and lead to a lot of uncertainty. And when I first arrived, I was saying hello to everybody. I was so excited, and being an excited American, that's exactly what you're doing. You're just running around and saying, oh, hello, hello, hello. My fiance had told me, you probably should not do that as much, and led me to a little bit of kind of self-reflection as to why. But eventually, I had to just say hello anyway.
Friendly American. And it almost reminds me as a little bit of a heightened Seinfeld episode. It's a little bit funny in a way, because that someone would be almost put off in a good way, because they're trying to be polite and they're racking their brain. So how do you get to know people? If you can't say hi to people, I guess the question is, if you can't say hi, what is the appropriate, politically correct Polish way when in Poland to get to meet people as the Polish do?
It's generally accepted to do this maybe in a coffee shop or at somebody's home, or be introduced through friends. But on the streets, you wouldn't just stop somebody and say, hello, hello, I really like your shoes. Where did you get your shoes? That wouldn't happen.
Okay.
So it's kind of, you have to have it in context. Maybe in the mall, it's okay to ask somebody, where did you get that? But on the street, not so much.
Well, it almost seems to me like the context is everything. It's like if you get a rogue email from someone that you don't know, saying hi and acting friendly, I could, understand how I would feel, and I would probably put it over to spam. And so maybe it's similar to that. That's a good way to contextualize it, perhaps.
There's a lot of different buffers here. I think that in the States, one of the things that I think about a lot is that, because the United States is such a country of immigrants, people had to come there not knowing English so much. So they had to figure out new ways to have people trust them. And smiling was one of those ways. And I think it's stuck through our culture. And so coming here, there isn't that, it's Poland. People here are Polish. They speak Polish language. They're used to this. This is their cultural bridge for each other. So having somebody that isn't integrated into that is the odd personality. I have to learn how to fit in with that, but I still have to maintain being American. So it's kind of a interesting balance of sorts.
We've been enjoying this conversation with Erik Witsoe, and he is an artist. He does comics. He does photography. He is learning Polish the best he can right now. And his talk is called Discovering Myself Through a Mini Adventure Perspective. And in a few moments, we'll let you know where you can go to actually click on a link, watch that talk. But right now, it's time for You Talk Universe. So we will be right back in just a moment with the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with the Blitz Round with Erik Witsoe. I'm about to ask Erik a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent branded talk. Erik, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Were you selected to speak or did you apply?
I was selected.
Are you a improviser, a memorizer, or a blender?
Blender.
How did that serve you?
It was great up until the 30 seconds before the hitting the stage, and I couldn't remember a single word from what I had supposedly in my head. So
no kidding. So where did it go from there? How did you get on track? Because obviously I didn't tell from watching the recording. So what happened next?
As soon as I got up on the stage and I could say hello, I took a breath and it just kind of came out. But my years of being in the hospitality business kind of prepared me for that. So I wasn't panicked. I knew that something would come. I just needed to start talking. And that's kind of where it came from that.
Erik, what's a tip, a tool, or a technique that helped you?
The technique that helped me when I was on stage at the TED Talk was actually to just look at the light and not try to see the crowd so much. Know that they're there, but not try to focus on every single person. I don't usually get nervous, but knowing that there was that many people in front of me kind of set the nerves off. The light actually helped me to calm down a little bit. So just looking at that light really kind of helped me focus.
Here's the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to trim in advance?
I think that probably a little bit more the lengthy storytelling that would go into it. Some of the background going back into what I discovered about myself in Poland, how to figure out how to, working within 18 minutes is very difficult. I could speak for hours, but 18 minutes is like, wow, I have a chunk of time and I need to fit all of this in there. And my first version of the speech was including way too much. A lot of my photography. I wanted to talk more about some of the things that I've discovered along the way there, but I had to really kind of narrow it down to 2 or 3 pieces of it. That was difficult. It was all, very difficult.
We've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Erik Witsoe. His talk is called Discovering Myself Abroad Through a Mini Adventure Perspective. And as promised, if you want to check that talk out and you don't want to type it all into YouTube, you can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We will have a clickable link for you there. And if you want to connect with Erik, check out his photography, get to know him a little bit, even though he is very likely on the other side of the world from many of you. You can go to erikwitsoe.com. Erik's, actually, I'll spell it for you. ERIKWITSOE.com. And we will be back in just a moment with the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with Erik Witsoe. It's time for the final word of advice for us in Talk Universe.
Ready? My final word of advice is this: travel often, and figure out those neighborhoods of culture that you might be missing. Make a little mini adventure for yourself every day, even in your own neighborhood. Try to discover something new. I like to, even when I was back in Seattle living there, some of the things that I would do would be to be a tourist in my own city. And so if you can't travel, do that. Be a tourist for a day. See and change your perspective. Somehow do something that you'd planned on doing and hadn't gotten to. Climb that building up at the top floor, take a ferry, take a new road, whatever you need to do to change your perspective.
Erik Witsoe, thanks so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Great to be here.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.